Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Coach Josh. Welcome to my Facebook Live. I'm so glad you guys are joining me right now. If you're watching live, feel free to get this broadcast out to as many people. If you're watching the replay and you're not watching live and you're watching on Facebook right now, feel free to share. Get this message out to as many people as possible. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's some links in the description box below. Feel free to engage. There's some links for you to give, get involved, learn more about what I do, about Unplug, etc. So feel free to get involved. Feel free to get plugged in. If you're listening to this on Google Play or Apple Podcast, thank you so much for listening. Feel free to rate us, subscribe, let us know if you're watching on YouTube. Again, for those new subscribers, we have over 7,000, 8,000 new subscribers. I want to say welcome to my YouTube page. Thank you guys so much for following me and for sharing the videos and all that good stuff. But today I want to talk about a topic. I just finished life coaching an individual, and this kind of popped up. And for the last hour or so, I kind of took some brief notes to really elaborate and see how this young lady's situation can possibly help you guys. The whole concept between the 80 and 20, the kind of theme of our conversation was, don't leave the 80 to chase the 20. Now, what does that mean? This young lady is kind of halt between two opinions. She's in a relationship with a man that she sees as a very solid man, an individual who really cares about her, etc. But there's other individuals that have some of the things that he lacks, but she desires. And as I was talking to her, I was encouraging, asking him that there's a difference between the 80 and the 20. For those people who have good, genuine relationships or genuine situations, whether it's family, whether it's a business, whether it's a ministry, do not have the mindset of leaving something solid for something shallow. Oftentimes, many people get so consumed with what they don't have versus being thankful for what they do have. And a lot of people have left good relationships, have left good situations because of other things that seemingly have things that they desire. Be very careful with curiosity, because this young lady was getting consumed with the financial status of this gentleman and the prestige this individual have, but she was dating or in a relationship with a blue collar individual. And I told her, I said, there's a big difference between knowing who you know and being curious about someone you don't know. Oftentimes people get enamored with, excited about something new and not appreciating what they have. When you get so consumed with that, you will actually miss out on the individual that you do have versus embracing the one. It all depends on if that person is someone that God has brought into your life. And many people have ruined good godly relationships because godly relationships to some degree in the world's context can be boring, can be stale, can be too by the book, and they want a little bit more excitement. And that's the dangers with lust. Lust always wants to be excited. Lust always wants to be intrigued. Lust always wants to be satisfied. And oftentimes when a person is not first content with God, they're not going to be committed into their relationships. Your commitment to your relationships, your commitment to your family, your commitment to the solid things of your life is predicated on your companionship with God. It's predicated on your contentment in Him. That's why I tell people, do not get into relationships and don't pursue marriage if you're not whole. And number two, if you're not content. If you're not content with God and content with being alone and okay with the presence of God, then you will always be uncomfortable in everybody else's presence, because you will always heighten up this individual in being the savior of your discomforts. And when that person has proven that they're mere human, whether male or female, then you would get uncomfortable with their presence. But if you're already comfortable in the presence of God, with discernment keen enough to be aware of what you have, then you will never be enamored or intrigued by someone else. That's why I tell people the 80 represents the solid, the 20 represents the shallow. And sometimes the shallow individuals, they're more intriguing to the carnal versus the spiritual. That's why I want to kind of go through my notes real quick so I can get out you guys' way. I tell people this, there's a big difference between how people are brought up. Many people leave good relationships and solid individuals due to ignorance, due to not understanding that people are different. And some of us are not patient enough to endure long enough to even enjoy the rightness of a relationship. I've heard all the time. There's people who's been married for 15 years, but they said the 15th year, the 14th year, the 13th year is the year of jubilance, joy, and excitement, but they almost quit at year 2. So many people are so caught up in getting into the marriage that they're not strong enough and understanding enough to build the endurance needed to sustain it. So I got some points real quick of why people chase the 20 and ways to build the 80. This is for people who are in relationships and you know you have a good man, you know you have a good woman, you know you're in a good situation, but there's some other things on the outside of your county, of your city, that's intriguing you to see what it's about. So I want to kind of give 4 or 5 points of why people chase the 20 and 4 or 5 points on ways to build the 80. But number one, people chase the 20 due to fear. So many people are in good situations right now, but they're afraid of just how good it can be. So many people right now are in love with someone, but they're afraid that it's too good to be true. Sometimes when people notice that things are too good to be true, quote unquote, because anything God is in is too good to be true, because God is too good for us and he is the truth. He sustains us. So oftentimes when God does bring you somebody and you begin to engage or whatever, that person seems too good to be true, or that person is too much than you can bear to a degree. And so many people get so caught up on, well, I'd rather hurt this or break this because I don't want this thing to hurt or break me. That's why it's important. If God brought it, it is not that person's responsibility to sustain you. It's God's. That's why you got to get to a place of not walking by fear. I posted a status the other day. I said, walking in fear and walking in place are the same. They both get you nowhere. So if there's fear in your heart, you got to understand that God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. In order to sustain relationships, you got to eradicate fear. Fear will cause you to leave something good because of nitpicking or because of searching for things or I'm afraid, so let me find something to get me out of this. But God did not give you a spirit of fear. He gave you a spirit of power, meaning that you have the power to, number one, fight those thoughts. You have the power to be able to engage. You have the power to be able to develop that man, that woman, and process and figure out what you're supposed to do. You also have the power, but love as well. Love is logical. Infatuation, emotions are not logical. Love is more logical than is emotional, meaning that when you have the spirit of love, love is not blind. Infatuation is. Love requires great sight. You can see. Love helps you process. When I love a person, I'm not going to get consumed with the moments of feeling. I'm not going to get consumed with the moments of tormenting thoughts, but I'm going to look and process to see why I'm in love. Many people got into relationships because of infatuation, and now they want to leave because they found out that they was too high in this infatuation, and now they feel like they're about to crash. That's why love is required for you to be able to process. Why am I even in love? Why do I love this person? And when you see that person has the 80 doesn't mean perfection. Nobody's 100. Only Jesus is 100. But the 80% represents the person that provides the bulk of what they're capable. The rest is going to be based upon their growth and supernatural support from God. But many people leave that 80 because that person is going through seasons and going through ebbs and flows, and you're frustrated because you don't feel as loved as you think you should. That's why you got to get to a place of saying, God, give me a spirit of love, because love helps me see clearly, and love helps me to process to see why I'm in love. Have you even asked yourself that question? Why do I love this person? Why is this person special to me? Because I do not want this person or that young lady or that young man to lure me out of something good because of fear. Number 2, curiosity. We know the saying, curiosity kills the cat. And oftentimes people, during certain seasons, they love the person, but sometimes curiosity creeps in because they feel like they're not provided for. They want to see if this person can sustain them, or the excitement of dating again. And sometimes relationships do get stale, and many people forget their relationships require work. You got to work on that thing. You got to be able to take the time needed to process, to talk, to communicate, to work through, because you're two imperfect people. Two imperfect people sharing a perfect thing is going to be, to some degree, frustrating, because you're not perfect. He's not perfect. She's not perfect. But you're trying to share one perfect thing that God deems as holy, and that's marriage. There's always going to be some conflict if two people are not willing to submit themselves and humble themselves to allow God to infuse that relationship. That's why you got to make way for God to be in a relationship so that you can be content so you won't be curious. When you content in God, there's no curiosity. When you're knowledgeable and aware of who you have and whose you are, contentment will keep you from being curious. So many people chase the person with the 20% because they're curious, because that person is entertaining those aspects that makes relationships so powerful. Number 3, lust. Some people just like, look, people are so more in lust than they are in love. Thank you for watching from Georgia. A lot of people are more in lust than they are in love, meaning some people allow lust to lure them versus love to keep them. When lust lures, many people get into relationships because of lust. Lust, the byproduct of lust is infatuation. Because I have a lustful heart, I'm going to be drawn to be in lust with someone else, longing for something to satisfy something that can't be satisfied, which is lust. Many people get into these relationships and the sex is good. Now, we're not talking about marriage. We're talking about marriage. Sex, oftentimes, and sexual things are their best in lust. They're their best when it's lustful, when it's something to hide, when it's something it's something intriguing about doing something lustful outside of marriage. So when people bring that into a marriage, or when people bring that into a courtship, all of a sudden, when true godly relationship is birthed, people are like, man, sex ain't the same, because now you got to make love to your wife, make love to your husband, and not compare your husband or wife to a porn star, or compare her to how it felt when it was lustful. That's why we have to make sure that we have a heart of love, because if you love that person, you will have selfless sex versus selfish sex. You will have a sex that's specifically pertaining to their needs with no expectation in return. And if the partner is reciprocate, able to give you the same, that's when the beauty of sex is increased and love is increased. But if a person is still full of lust, still watching porn, and still intrigued, and still looking at women, still looking at men, then that lust is going to lure them out from that relationship. Number 4, confusion. Some people allow the enemy to confuse them. They move more so off emotion than discernment. When a person gets so sunken into a moment that they can't even perceive why they're even upset, they become argumentative. They become so consumed with maybe there's something better out there. That's what happened to Eve. The enemy came in with the suggestion to Eve that God is hiding something. And when she began to perceive maybe God is hiding something from me, she disconnected herself as being a daughter. Your greatest position in order for your manhood, your marriage, and your father and motherhood to succeed is knowing yourself as son and daughter. When Eve disconnected herself from being God's daughter, it affected her as a wife. And so what happens is when you disconnect yourself from being God's son and daughter and being submitted, it affects how you are as a man. It affects how you are as a woman. And then that confusion creeps in your mind. And all of a sudden you become curious, confused. Is this person really love me? And you forget maybe this person is going through a troublesome time. Maybe this person is going through some things. Maybe this person, and maybe God is trying to use their situation to build patience for you, so that when the tides turn and you go through something tough, then they can be patient for you. But if you have impatience, then the suggestions of the enemy will cause you to be confused, and you will be looking at those that love you most as your enemy versus those that support you. It happens all the time. You now begin to look at that man that loves you as your enemy. You begin to look at that woman that loves you as your enemy, because you have allowed the enemy to make you look at God and the person that loves you as your enemy. We do it all the time. We did it with our parents. We did it with those. It's crazy how we treat those who love us most the worst, because subconsciously we know that person will never leave. But we forget people can only take but so much. Some people can only take but so much. And then when they walk out, now you have regrets. Now the demon has left. The demon's job is done. And now you have clarity. And you're like, man, what did I even do to sabotage my own relationship? He sabotages it through confusion. God sustains it through clarity. That's why when you know you were someone that God sent you, that's why it's imperative for you to know who the one is. That's why it's imperative for you to have God's confirmation in your relationship, so that when you do have arguments, so that when you do go through stuff, you have a reference point to give you clarity, to reassure you that God is here. And then you will allow the supernatural work of God to cause you to forgive before the sun goes down, and you will be executing and going through the biblical processes to sustain it. But if you don't have that confirmation and you allow confusion to cause you to pursue the 20. The 20 represents those people who are shallow. They only have the 20. They have no substance. Substance versus shallow. When you have a person of substance, do not let them go. Let me talk to the people real quick, those who are 80s. If you're the 80s out there and you have a person thinking about leaving you, let them go. In order for someone to appreciate your presence, they have to feel the presence. They have to feel your absence. When a person feels your absence, then they can clearly see why you were special. Sometimes people get so comfortable with you that they forget just how unique you are, and they begin to complain about why you don't do the 20, but you do the 80. A lot of 20s can't do the 80, but all the 80s can do what they can. And when you leave when that person wants to leave, let them go. But warn them, if I let you go, it is only by the grace of God that I accept you. Because if a person does not know who you are and know how special you are, let them leave. If you're an 80, keep building. If that person want to leave for the 20, 2 years later, they'll realize you were special. It's happened to me plenty of times. People have left and then they realize just how one of a kind I was. And if you're one of a kind, do not try to mix within the kind. Because when you're trying to mix in other people's kindness, or not kindness, but in their different type of persuasions and influences, you will miss out on just how unique you are. Do not compromise yourself to be accepted. Be you, keep growing, sustain yourself in God, and let them leave, because when they leave, they're going to realize just how special you are. Sometimes people get so comfortable with your presence that they forget just how special and anointed and specific your presence is. Let them go. Number 5, blindness. Some people are just blind. You could be doing everything right boldly in front of them and they leave. Listen, do not allow blindness. Some people can see, but their minds are blind. So when they're looking at you, they're so consumed with the devil's influence and suggestions that they're more focused on why you doing what you're doing and why you're not doing this, that they miss out on just how special you are. Do not leave for the 20 because that blind man that you're chasing, that blind woman that you're chasing is only going to lead you to the ditch. The blind leads the blind and they both fall into the ditch. If that 80 can see, stay with that 80. I tell people, I don't care how well packaged the 20 percenters are. If you're an 80 percenter, you got to trust that person that can see. An 80 percenter is a person who says, you know what? I may not have all the money, I may not have everything, and I may be going through a tough season now, but I guarantee you this, I'm connected to God. Never leave a person who's connected to God, because if that person, there's a lot of people who act like they're connected with God, but truly are not. Number 6, laziness. People don't want to work in relationships no more. People don't want to work. The moment they feel like this thing is, that's why I tell people, if you feel resistance, what I mean by resistance, if you guys are doing things in the right way and you feel resistance and you feel warfare, you guys are going in the right direction. This is godly relationships. Do not allow the resistance to make you want to reach out for something peaceful. Because if you're not going through resistance, chances are you're in the wrong relationship or your relationship's going the wrong way. But if you're going through resistance, and warfares happen periodically through different solstices and different satanic holidays, and you find yourself, especially if you're with someone in ministry, if you're in ministry, you got to be able to see the warfare you're going through. Do not allow blindness or laziness to lure you to chase for something that's not going to sustain you. And many people do that with God. God is the 100%er, but we want to consume ourselves with something that seems more enticing. Listen, he's the rock that never changes. I'm so thankful that God is sure and that he's established, because I know I can trust him. But so many people are chasing the 20 because of laziness. I don't want to work no more. It's too much resistance. I don't want to work. Oh, it's warfare. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I can't believe that. I don't want to do this. If they keep talking like that, they may not be resilient enough to help you through your tough times. You want resilient people. You want people to be able to see a tough time and resistance and understand the difference between warfare and warfare caused by stupid decisions. That person knows how to discern and help grow and develop you. So those are the 5-6 things that causes people to chase the 20. Now let's talk about ways to build the 80. And I'm getting out your way. I gotta go to the gym. And for those who's watching right now on Facebook Live, feel free to share. Feel free to get this message out. Go ahead and get it out. Get it out as far as you can. If you want to share, you can share now. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, when you're watching a replay, feel free to engage with the links below so you can better engage with what I do. If you're looking for one-on-one coaching, feel free to contact me. If you're looking to bring the Purpose of Singleness tour or anything that I do to your city, please contact me. I would love to come to your city to help serve your country, your church, not your country, 4th of July, serve your community, your city, your church, whatever. Also, if you're listening, thank you guys for listening. Ways to build the 80, right? This is for those people who's like, yeah, I'm discouraged. I don't know if this is of God, whatever. I feel whatever about it. This is ways to build the 80 in you and the 80 in that person. Because remember, no one's going to ever be 100. Let's talk about this. Number one, look inward. Am I 80 or am I 20? Look inward. Before you leave a good thing, let me make it clear, before you leave a God thing. And people leave God things every day, because Eve and Adam was in a God place and they allowed suggestions to get them outplaced from that God's place. So don't count it strange. A lot of people have a good godly thing, but they leave it because of these things are listed before. You got to make sure that you're not allowing yourself to be so consumed with what's out there and not embracing what you do have. This is not no plea for you to stay with someone who's not progressing. I always tell people, marry progression, don't marry potential. Marrying potential is like, I think that I see something good in them. I see greatness in them. I feel like they're going to go somewhere, but they're not progressing. You want to marry somebody who's progressive. They're an 80, they're solid, but they're doing their best to grow. They're learning, they're growing. They may be going through tough times or whatever, but we're talking about people who are progressing. We're not talking about potential. Do not marry potential. Do not court potential. Do not even get consumed with potential. Focus on progression. Are they progressing the things of God? Are they progressing spiritually? Are they progressing emotionally? Are they progressing mentally? Are they progressing physically? Because progression gives you evidence that they're tied to a power. We're talking about progressing through the power of God. And if God's in the midst and they're progressing, you know that the power of God and the endorsement of God is on their life. That's what you should be seeking for. Seeing if someone is progressing relentlessly and becoming better. That's why I never say new year, new me. I say new day, new me. Every day I'm endeavored to grow at least 0.5%. So anyway, look inward. You got to look at yourself and be like, why am I tripping? I got to make sure I eliminate selfishness. Am I selfish? Selfishness kills relationships. Many people boast about, well, I'm not selfish. But the fact that you quickly say that without humbly looking at yourself proves you have some selfishness. Selfishness kills relationships because it's receiving, not giving. The relationship is predicated on what I need now versus what we need right now. Many people get so caught up in the Westbrook mentality. No offense to his MVP track record versus a Golden State mentality. So what happens is they have I'm going to get my triple doubles. It's all me. I want the MVP, but they don't want the championship. That's why I want a Golden State type of relationship, a relationship where the ball moves, where I know what you're best at, you know what I'm best at, and we're both growing and we winning championships, and we got the whole league upset. Players leaving the East to go to the West. Teams are trying to hurry up and find a way to become a team, but they forget just how it's going, okay? They forget it's about a team, not about individual stats. And some people are in relationships with people who have a Westbrook mentality. They got triple doubles, but they're out the first round of the playoffs. You got to have a mentality like a Kevin Durant and say, I got to leave and go somewhere where I can thrive. And when you're in that type of relationship where it's a team effort, selfishness won't thrive. It's not about if I'm going to take the last shot, if you're going to cook tonight, if I'm going to watch this. It's not about this. It's about I love you selflessly. You love me selflessly. This is a team effort. If you own a relationship with one superstar and they're not willing to have another superstar, don't be surprised when that person leaves to go join Golden State. So I hope that makes sense, that you got to be able to say, are we a team? You got to look inward. You got to look at yourself and be like, am I selfish? Am I a person of substance, or am I shallow myself? And some of us have great golden individuals, but not seeing their true value. And I'm telling you, another person's trash is another person's treasure. You may see this person as worthless, but somebody, that's why it's funny when people don't have experience, when people are not willing to process, they forget just how special you are. And what happens is they be like, you know, when this thing is getting boring, it's getting too tough, I'm out. And then they realize, I can't find this person nowhere else. Stay you, stay true, stay special. Because when people leave you and they go out there in the real world and they start finding out that there ain't that many dudes acting like you, there ain't a lot of girls acting like you, they're going to always want to come back to your door. But they forgot that when they left you, they gave you fuel to grow. And now when they left you in that time span, you outgrown them. And now they want to reap the fruit from your growth. That's why if they have the audacity to leave you from stupidity, then they should not enjoy your special seasons. If they can't endure the storms of life with you, they should not be able to enjoy the sun with you. If you want all weather, you want an all weather companion. You don't want a fair weather or a fair weather relationship. You want someone that's going to be there for you through every season, allowing the Holy Spirit to use them to be able to help the team win. Number 2, see him through his lenses. What I mean by that, see that person through God's lens. When you look through God's lens, asking God, if this is the one you have me with, God, help me to see this person the way you see them. Nobody's perfect. A lot of people make mistakes. Not everybody's going to be perfect every time. But do not chase the 20 because you see the 80 wrong. Do not try to chase someone that left you because you don't see yourself correctly. You got to build yourself by seeing yourself and seeing that person you love through his lens continuously, because the enemy is after marriage. You know why he's after marriage? Because marriage is not held in honor no more. And when marriage is not held in honor, marriage begins to become a theme park to people. It becomes a theme park. Everybody wants to go play. Everybody wants to go do it and then realize they can't. It's like a lot of people saying, I can play the NBA, but when they get into the NBA, they realize just how difficult it is. And many people, when they get into it or get close to it, their excitement tries to push them in there too soon. Then they forget just how tough it is. And you need to have God's lenses on, his contacts on daily, so that you can clearly see every situation, every experience through his lens. If you don't, you're going to self-sabotage your relationships, and you're going to cause arguments, get in trouble, get mad at each other, all this stuff for no reason. Number 3, celebrate, critique, and celebrate. Never forget this. I told the young lady this. Celebrate, critique, celebrate. Ain't nobody got time to hear criticism. Why ain't you doing this? Why can't you do this better? Why haven't we done this? Nobody wants to hear that. The best way to communicate your feelings is celebrate, critique, celebrate. Meaning when you get with your boo, your loved one, instead of critiquing them all the time, just say, you know what? I like when you do this. You do this exceptionally well. And since you do this exceptionally well, I really admire this. But there's an area that I wish that we both can be better at. And after you give them that criticism, you end it with the critique. You end it with not a critique, you end it with a celebration. You make sure that person is soft. It's called a sandwich. It's a communication sandwich. You got the bread, you got the meat, you got the bread. The middle piece is what you're trying to communicate. But if you communicate it in a chaotic environment, don't get mad that person responds, because that person is thinking he's thinking or she's thinking they're giving you the best. They don't know they're not perfect. But when you have a concern, communicate well. Relationships die because of poor communication. You got to learn how to communicate. Listen, I got a video I'm doing tomorrow. A man's lust and a woman's emotions. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. But you got to be able to communicate and not let your lust lead or your anger lead or your emotions lead. Just because you have emotions, just because you have desires, don't mean you let them things have you. And what you have to do is make sure that person feels safe. That instead of critique, you're going to make that person feel like they're walking on eggshells. Thank you, Erica. It's all about the approach. I tell people, if you got a man, for sure, men are simple. Women, we'll talk about that another time. But man, sit that man down. Put a meal in front of him. Sit on his lap if that's your husband. That's you engaged and whatnot. Don't be sitting on laps now. Take him to Panera Bread if you ain't married. Put a nice sandwich meal in front of him. Rub his back. Put him in an atmosphere where he feels comfortable and at peace. Celebrate him, then critique and say, hey, I got a concern. I wish that, I just want to bring this to you. He's going to be like, baby, sure, I got you, baby. Don't even worry, but we got it. And then celebrate him again. Don't critique, because that person's going to combat you every time because nobody wants to hear how bad they really are. And for ladies, gentlemen, you got to make sure that you are connected to her love language. But women, you got to be a little bit more comfortable in helping that man grow into understanding the complexities of being a woman. When there's communication and the right approach in the right way, that relationship thrives and it grows and it's sustained. But if you always, and I tell people, if you feel emotional, don't communicate when you feel emotional because you're going to regret what you say. Because a person can forgive what you say, but they can't forget what you say. And do not provoke the other. If you know for a fact that you are emotional or you're a strong-minded person, do not provoke that person to wrath. Do not provoke that person out of their character, because some of us have brought people into their old self by pushing the button. Keep tapping them, pushing the button. And that's why a lot of good men, a lot of good women have done things they regret, but they was poked the whole time. They was pushed the whole time. But if you learn how to approach in a loving way, and when you feel emotional, before you go to a person, before you give your emotions and how you feel, power packed behind with emotions, give it to God first. That's why I tell couples all the time, go to your prayer closet first. Pray in tongues. You got to close the word before you give it to that person, because many people pull their dump trucks right into that person's life and then dump everything on them. Dump everything just because, I don't care how women no longer should blame their emotions. Men should no longer blame their anger. It's over. If you're in Christ, that's over with. There's no excuses anymore. You can no longer be emotional because you say you're a woman. You no longer can say you're lustful because you're a man. I'll get into my message for tomorrow. I'll digress. Next. Number 4, understand their season and utilize their season to grow you. Let me tell you something. Understand their season. Some people want romance when they're in war. Sometimes couples become so one-sided, they forget that this person's in a season right now. Like if a person's going through a tough season, it may not be all time for romance. Because that person is learning. You got to be able to look at their season and say, you know what? It's not time for me to be selfish right now. It's my time to say, you know what? I got to be selfless right now. Like if a person's going through a tough season, you can't be expecting sex all the time. You can't be expecting a cooked meal all the time. They're going through something. Now it's your turn to be selfless. It's your turn to be long suffering. And people may be like, it's unfair. This season for this person has been 2 years. Who cares? Jesus has been with you, baby girl. Young man, Jesus has been with you. He's been long suffering with you for a long time, right? He has been long suffering. He's been while you was yet a sinner, he died. While you still yet sinning, he's still pushing and still there, helping you on your bike again and help you ride again. But many people get off focus from the season that person's in, because that person's going through hell. Why are you expecting heaven from someone who's going through hell? Why are you expecting heaven with someone that's going through hell? If a person's going through a hellish experience, God should be your heaven to sustain you and support you to be able to help them. No matter if it takes 4 years, 5 years, that's the gift of patience. It's a fruit. And if you lack that patience or you're getting weary and well doing, you got to go to God for God to sustain you, and you pray that person through instead of complain and pout while that person's going through. And then you say, oh, I was there for you. You was there and present, but you was pouting and complaining the whole time versus I'm going to pray you through. Because I promise you, whoever, if they're God sent, if you pray them through that situation, they will begin to help pray you through yours. And you help that season to develop you. Say, okay, I'm gonna let this season develop me too. Even though you're going through a tough season, I'm gonna let this season make me more patient. God's gonna. Oh, that's why relationships can become unbalanced sometimes. Why it's balanced by God. It feels unbalanced in a relationship, but it's completely balanced in God, because God's saying, while this person's going through a loss in their family, while this person's going through a tough time, I'm gonna utilize this person's experience to strengthen your patience, to strengthen your love, so that you can be able to see. My mom always told me, you'll know what true love is when you have a child. She was telling me that when you have a child, you will be able to understand God better, and you will be able to understand your parents better. And I really believe that to be true, that when you begin to have unconditional love for someone, you will begin to see just how loved you are by God. Number 5, study patience. Thank you. Ask for more grace. That's true. Study patience, man. Relationships is a long journey, man. It requires patience. It requires sacrificial love. It requires, man, patience is the game. Has patience had her perfect work in you in your single life? Because if she hasn't had her perfect work, then you're not gonna have a good marriage. It's that simple. If you're not understanding patience, if you can master to some degree and understand patience to some degree, you will have mastered anything and everything, because everything and anything has a certain amount of patience needed for that thing to survive. And you got to say, you know what, God, while we're both going through this tough situation, I'm not going to allow this uncomfortable, trying time to cause me to go look for something else, because the enemy loves destroying relationships by going to the weaker person in the relationship. Whoever's the weakest in the relationship runs the relationship, because that's why the devil went to Eve. It's not saying women versus men. Hear me clearly. He went to the weaker vessel. He knew that Adam was probably more logical. He was probably a thinking man. He said the best way to cause man to fall, mankind, both women and men to fall, is to get to the person that the head person is connected to. If you get to the weaker person, that person, out of their love for that person, will receive the fruit and bite too. That's why your team has to be strong. Your team, your ministry team, your relationship, your marriage has to be strong, because whoever's the weakest link will drain and suffocate the strong person. The enemy is going to always try to come through the weaker, emotional, illogical, irrational individual, because when he does that, he says, I can get to the bishop, the pastor, the man of God, the woman of God. I can get to this businessman, this entrepreneur. I can get to this councilman. I can get to this person through this weak person. That's why you got to make sure before you bring people on your team that they're spiritually aware. Whoever lacks spiritual understanding becomes a liability to those who are. And when you bring people who are not spiritually aware enough to understand spiritual warfare, those enemies will use them as warfare tools against you. Are you God's weaponry or the enemy's weaponry against the person that you love? Last but not least, guard your words and put your emotions under the lordship of God. Guard your words. Words can be forgiven, but not forgotten. You got to guard your words, man. You got to have God's heart always, God's mind always, to be able to discern who you're with. And if this is of God, I'm going to stay true. Most young relationships don't last because they're selfish. They have expectations. They have a lot of things that keeps them from really enjoying the gift that God has given them. Are you chasing a 20? Or are you building the 80s? Because if you're 80%er and you got someone that's 80%er, you're going to build them. But do not chase something that you think is fun, exciting, possibly can sustain you, and leave the people that truly love you. Listen to me. If you're 80%er, listen to me closely. If a person wants to leave, let them go. When you let them go, you let them learn. When you let them go, they'll learn a lot of lessons, because when you're one of a kind, do not change to match their kind. You be you, you be unique. If they leave, let them go. And if you're 80%er and you're in a relationship with another 80%er, y'all both growing, keep God in the mix. But do not allow the suggestion of the enemy to cause you to leave something that God has brought into your life. I pray this message was a blessing. I hope that young lady kind of really hit on the spot that I thought was going to be beneficial to y'all. Feel free if you want to bring me to your city, your church, your college. Feel free. I'm available. I have the Purpose of Singleness tour. If you want to bring that to your city, go to my website, mycoachjosh.org. Go to my website right now. Look at it. If you want one-on-one coaching, I'm here to help you. Just like I helped this young lady today. Check out my prices. The prices are too steep for you. Feel free to contact me. Listen, I ain't here for your money. I'm just here to help. But I do have gold that I really do believe will help you. So I'm here to serve you all. Bring me out, all that good stuff. I love you guys. Remember, stay true to God and trust his process. If you watch this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe. If you're listening, thank you guys for listening. Facebook Live, thank you guys so much. Feel free to comment. Feel free to share. Love you all. Until next time.